one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it, because you can.
This story comes to us from NOLA.com. Pearl River police arrested 3 people last month who were protesting President Donald Trump's immigration policies at a prominent highway intersection in Louisiana, a move that sparked a larger gathering of protesters and counter-protesters and raised questions about free speech protections. About 5 p.m. on January 28th, officers with the Pearl River Police Department arrived at the intersection of Louisiana 41 and Louisiana 3081 highways in Pearl River after receiving complaints that a small group were obstructing traffic and using profanity toward motorists and children on school buses, according to a police department news release, if you believe the cops. One of the people, Lauren McKinney, 34, of Slidell, said she held a sign that said ICE, spelled out, written on it, referring to one of the agencies leading the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, Immigration Customs Enforcement. Another person had been using a bullhorn to say the same phrase, ICE, and a similar one about Trump. According to video of the incident, the officers approached McKinney, Courtney Potkoski, 54, and her daughter Isabella Potkoski, 19, and told them they couldn't have profanity on their signs, not true, it's free speech, and needed to stop making profane gestures to drivers. Johnson versus Johnsonville. 3 other protesters had left before officers arrived, McKinney said. After a tense exchange of words that ended in a short struggle, officers arrested the 3 women on misdemeanor charges of disturbing the peace. Isabella Potkoski and McKinney were also arrested for resisting arrest and resisting arrest by refusing to identify, also misdemeanors. Now, Bruce Hamilton, the director of the First Amendment Clinic at Tulane University, who reviewed video of the incident, said it touched on a classic point of First Amendment doctrine concerning when protected speech crossed over into speech that could be perceived as a direct threat, which can sometimes run afoul of the law. Well, it's protected speech, profanity on a sign. Hamilton said that without more information, he could not comment on the overall legality of the January arrests, but said that having profanity on a sign is protected speech, and that generally you cannot be arrested for directing profanity at another person in public. He also questioned the arrest of a person for failing to provide identification in the context of the demonstration, because they're not committing a crime. The arrest led to a slightly larger demonstration a few days later at the same intersection with around 30 people holding anti-ICE signs and waving American flags. Drivers shouted and honked as they went by, while nearby, a group of about 10 counter-protesters held pro-ICE signs. Pearl River Police Chief Jack Sessions watched the demonstrations along with around a dozen other law enforcement officers, including some in tactical gear with binoculars, who observed from nearby gas station rooftops. He said, "We stand for the First Amendment. We don't have problems with that," Sessions said, looking out at the crowd. Then why did your officers tell them they couldn't have profanity on their signs? He went on, "As long as you stay civil." McKinney, a former Pearl River resident, was back at the protest, the larger protest, this time holding a sign in Spanish that roughly translates to the same thing as her sign from January, ICE. McKinney said she began demonstrating last month because she wanted people in Pearl River, which she said is politically conservative, to know they were not alone if they felt what was going on in our country was wrong. McKinney denied that protesters in January were going into traffic or using profanity towards specific people or children. She said they expressed their feelings about our governing body and our country today. Major Francisco Dean of the Pearl River Police Department said the basis for the arrests, listen to this, was not the sign, but calls his office received from people saying protesters were obstructing traffic and using profanity towards motorists. That's free speech. For one, that's free speech. using profanity. You can say F ice. You can even say F you. But I mean, I get if you say, I'm going to throw you over that car, punch you in the face, and F you, buddy, right up the poop chute. I mean, okay, now maybe that's a threat. But just having it on your sign. But he said the basis of the arrest wasn't that they, the sign. Then why did the cops come up and say you can't have profanity on your signs? But then he also says the basis of the arrest was, part of it was, using profanity towards motorists. That's free speech. That's free speech. The 3 women who were arrested were all released on bond and are scheduled to appear in the 22nd JDC court in Covington in April of this year. Debbie Weber, a spokesperson for the 22nd JDC District Attorney's Office, said her office had not yet received the police report, so they could not yet determine if they will accept the charges. They probably will. McKinney said she planned to fight the arrest and that Covington attorney Buddy Spell had agreed to defend her. Courtney Potkoski said she and her daughter did not have a lawyer yet and were considering how they would proceed. You can go with a public defender. You really can. And I know some people don't like the public defenders and whatnot, but sometimes you can get a public defender that'll give you a really good out. The bottom line here is, again, you have cops coming up, don't know the law. They go by their own feelings. Well, you can't have FU on your sign, and that's very, very, insulting. Look at that F ice on your sign, and children can see that. That is so, oh my God, you can't have that. I'll arrest you for that. Well, that's because you're a moron. It's because the Pearl River police officers are morons. They are. And that's not being angry. That's not me being non-Christian. I have to say that now because I get these people that go, well, you're supposed to be a Christian. I'm just making an observation. That's not a sin. It's not a sin to make an observation. It's not unchristian-like to make an observation, to say that guy's a moron. It's an observation. He's a moron. Because it's free speech. But these cops, I swear to defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of Louisiana. And as soon as you get out there, the first thing you do is violate their First Amendment rights and their Fourth Amendment rights. First thing you do. That's what these cops, I swear I take an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California. And the first thing you do when you get out there is you violate people's rights. First thing. And that's what this story is about. Cops who don't know the law because they don't take time to read it. Well, I don't have time to hold court. Then get a different job if you don't have time to do your job properly. Then get a different one. Well, we don't have time to hold court. That's because you don't want to do. You take time to do your job properly. You want to go get a beer or go get a bag of donuts and coffee. You don't have time because you don't want to take the time to do your job properly. You'd rather go park somewhere behind a church and BS with your buddies. Well, let's arrest these people and get them out of here so we can go BS behind a church somewhere. I'm done. I got 2 hours left of my shift. I just want to sit and talk. And I can get all the haters coming at me all you want, but I've seen it. I've seen them park behind the churches, just sitting there talking while people speed down the street, drunk drivers swerving in and out of lanes, and cops are parked behind a church somewhere just talking. Yeah. And that's why these cops do this. That's why they don't look up the law to see if they're correct. They don't care. They don't care about you. They're collecting a paycheck. All they're doing is collecting a paycheck. They don't care if they do their job properly or not. They're just collecting a paycheck, man. I get paid at the end of the week. Meanwhile, they're violating people's civil rights and constitutional rights and getting away with it. Welcome to America and welcome to American policing. It's been that way for 35 years. It's not going to change. But one thing we can do is we can expose it on camera and in these stories. We can expose them. We can make it national and international. People in Australia are watching. People in I was going to say New England. People in England and are watching in Ireland and Scotland. And it's too early. I need a drink. But but you get what I'm saying, right? This is international. People over in England and people in Australia are watching this. People in Canada are watching these stories, are watching our videos, are watching the live protests. And that's how we start making change, is we expose them on video and on social media. That's how we start to make change. Because otherwise, you know how many people I see sitting on the curb while cops go through their car and they're like this? Instead of like this. I'm recording you. No, nobody records. But then I come up and start recording the police. They laugh. Dude's recording. Yeah, I'm recording you sitting on the curb getting your car rummaged through. Why aren't you recording? You should be recording. I want to know what all you think. Let me know.